and following them into that really stupid, not stupid in the show, but stupid in them going into that basement.
There was that time when Bob nearly got everyone killed. Let's not forget that.
That is true, because we went back to booze.
I would have done it too. Anyway, this week we're talking about episode 503, Four Walls and a Roof, directed by Jeffrey F. January. That's a fun name. And written by Angela Kang and Corey Reed. What did you guys think before we get into the specifics? What did you guys think of the episode in general?
Really solid episode. A very tense middle, and well, there's some problems I have with it, but overall I think it was a really solid episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty solid as well. There's except for the one logic flaw that we have towards the end of it involving Abraham, but other than that, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I was surprised that they went through the Hunters storyline as quickly as they did, but it's kind of setting the stone for this new season of them covering a lot of ground in a short amount of time. So I thought it was a solid episode too.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about before that Beware the Hunters from the comics, which I believe is volume 12, but that's just off the top of my head, is my favorite story from the comics. Overall, for all, this was my favorite story from the comics. And as for the version of it, I liked it. I did have some problems with it, but we can get into that in the discussion of the episode. So, gentlemen, should we get into it?
It's in hardcover book 6, by the way, for those that don't know the issues offhand.
Yeah, that would be softcover volume 12 then, yes. Or 11 if it's in book 6. I'm pretty sure it's 12. So this episode, like we said, Four Walls and a Roof, starts with Gareth taunting Bob, kind of where we left off last episode, after they've eaten Bob's left leg. And he's quite upset that Carol and Daryl got away, because Carol killed his mother. Apparently someone from the group saw her and Daryl drive away. And not that we were, I think by this point and by the end of the episode, we wouldn't be under the misconception anyway, but it's pretty clear that Daryl's group and whoever Daryl and Carol are following, whoever took Beth, seem to be completely non-connected.
As I've been saying from the start.
Yeah, I think we've all pretty much agreed with that, but there's always been at least the possibility that was the case. I think that any possibility has been wiped away at this point.
I have a really good theory on who that is, and it ties into who is in the woods with Daryl, so...
Well, let's get to that at the end.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
you mentioned the group eating Bob's leg. It's not just like eating. They're having like a Carl's Jr. love affair with that leg. Like they were like showing big close-ups on them chewing the meat and juxtaposing it with the zombies that are like just eagerly waiting to eat something outside the window from them. Like it was a gorgeously shot sequence of something really horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a McDonald's commercial. Like everybody's just smiling and happy. And they're surrounded by zombies, but they don't care because they got Bob's
Like I said, Bob was born delicious. And the scene with between Gareth and Bob, I really enjoyed the acting in the scene. I mean, Bob just really, I just really enjoyed the interplay between the two. And then when he starts laughing and he tells him what happened to him in the food drive, it just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite scenes of the episode.
Should we get into Gareth more now, or do you want to wait till later? Because I think I'd like to say about Gareth.
Go ahead.
Well, let me just finish out the scene. Sure. It won't take that long, and then we can discuss some more. So Gareth vows that he's going to eat Rick and group, and then Bob begins to cry, and then hysterically laughing, kind of a nice Joker moment or Walter White moment from the crawl space, whichever you want to go to. And then he starts telling them that they're eating tainted meat, and he pulls back the shoulder of his shirt to show that he was bitten in the food drive. And they all start to panic, except for Gareth, who says, we cooked it, we should be fine. And then he knocks Bob out because he doesn't want to hear laughing.
now, I only asked this question because we have a professional on the podcast. Jim, as a chef, what sides and accoutrement do you serve with a Bob's leg to actually tie it all together nicely?
Well, shank, I would recommend braising rather than cutting the cookie over an open fire because there's a lot of tendon and it needs to cook down to really get tender. So I'd say like a slow braise with maybe some root vegetables and some red wine over that fire for maybe 2 or 3 hours. Really let the flavors marry, as it were.
Well, Jim, I mean, this is a Rolling Stones song. Time was not on their side.
That's true. I mean, you gotta do what you can when you can. But I really like the way this was shot too. I'm really like enjoying their cannibalism. I mean, if there was any gray area that was left, in the earlier episodes about this group, it's totally wiped away here. I mean, yeah, it was a weird, like, to me it was almost like a weird redo of the similar scenes in the original Night of the Living Dead, where they show them like kind of feasting on the entrails and stuff, and lingering on that. It kind of was like a weird kind of refiltering or reimagining of that for me anyway.
I can see exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is true or not. I just know from other things that I've read or heard on cannibalism, not that it's a subject I study a lot, but that people eating their own causes them to go insane.
It's similar to mad cow disease, if I recall correctly. Not exactly the same. I think that has to do more with ground meat and stuff like that. But yeah, it can lead to that over time. It's certainly not something I would recommend.
Well, I'm just saying that could explain a little bit of how they've become so complacent and how, like Jim said, the gray area has been completely removed. And definitely, while he spoke well, there definitely was a level of insanity to Gareth in the way that he.
What kind of thing is a degenerative brain disease? So I mean, I guess it's possible.
I think it also comes with the situation that they've been in, and not just the fact they're eating meat, but the stuff they've gone through in the past and whatnot has certainly turned them this way. Not just we ate a bad thing and now we're crazy people.
So what were your comments on Gareth as of this point, Aaron?
I just want to go into complimenting the character of Gareth and praising it. I think Andrew J. West has done a great job with his performance and just the writers in general of taking this character and given the amount of time we've had with him, making him a very credible threat, making him a very good villain that you like to hate and you enjoy watching but can't wait to see perish in all of this. And I say this because I'm not a huge fan of the Governor. Like as good as David Morrissey was trying to make that performance work, I really wasn't a fan of how they handled that character. And I mean those 2 episodes following the Governor I think are 2 of the weakest episodes of The Walking Dead. So I mean it stands to reason that I am not a fan there. But given the 4 episodes we've had with Gareth, I really love the way that they handled this person. I love how he's kind of smug and taunting Bob's character. I love his performance later on in the church and kind of where that leads. But just in general, I really think
Do you think a lot of that has to do with how they got in and got out with him, as opposed to the Governor, who we had a ton of episodes with? In other words, they didn't have time to screw it up. And I don't mean that like as a negative against the show, but it was just like, here he is, he's awesome for this reason as a character, and now he's gone.
I think that adds to it. But even so, I mean, they gave 2 entire episodes to the Governor and couldn't make that work. So I mean, it's just they could have easily given Gareth like a whole episode with like backstory and whatnot. They didn't choose to. They could have showed us like his side of things and different ways than how they handled it here. But instead, we got like 2 bookends on the premiere episode and then this episode and just like a tad bit on the finale of last season. And that's like all I needed to really understand who this character was. I still don't really understand who the Governor was and everything, given what they're showing so many different sides of him and confusing us the whole time. So that's.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like the Governor was better defined in the comics than it was in the show.
Yes.
With very little backstory, no less too. I mean, the only backstory of the Governor is in terms of the comics is the written novels that came as spin-offs.
Now, I mean, the thing with the Governor, to that point, as I agree, he's a much more defined and a dangerous threat in the comic books. I think that because of how much I did like the character in the comic, I really hung on to David Morrissey's Governor in the show. But I at the time I kind of disagreed with Aaron on I really liked the way that they did it. But now that we've had what we got with Gareth in 3-4 episodes, proves that you can have an impactful character without dragging it out. My thing with the Governor was he was very underwhelming in comparison to the comic book. With Gareth and with the Hunters, I feel that they were kind of a flash in the pan, so to speak, in the comic book, and we got them much better defined in the show and in such a short amount of time, which just goes to Scott Gimple's running of the show now, is that he's able to have the writing team and everybody on the creative team together to where they can give us great story without dragging it on and on and on, because there's not a single thing that I've missed out of these last 3 or 4 episodes from the end of last season to this season to make me want more explanation of Gareth or the group or anything like that. And that to me is good writing and good television.
That's a good way to put it.
So back at the church, Sasha has noticed that Bob is gone. She goes out into the backyard of the church to look for Bob. She does not see him, but she's almost attacked by a zombie, or she's attacked by a zombie, and the zombie is dispatched. But she also thinks she saw someone watching the group, so she goes back and she confronts Father Gabriel over the disappearance of group members, because they've also realized that Carol and Dale are gone. Rick also asks Gabriel what he did before he's so ashamed of, and Gabriel admits that when the outbreak occurred, he locked his entire congregation outside of the church, leaving them to be eaten by the walkers. He shows great remorse and says he's damned to hell, and says that he also buried the bones out back. But he also seems that he has this kind of recurring mantra of, I always lock the doors. Like he was trying to explain the way that it wasn't like he purposely locked the doors to keep them away. It was just that he had always locked the doors at night, and it was so early that he didn't unlock them this time. I was a little bit unsure of what he was trying to say there with the I always lock the doors. I always lock the doors.
He's a coward.
Yeah, I get that. I think part of it is also I don't buy his performance. I said last week that I wasn't sure if I liked it or didn't like it. I think after this episode, I really don't like what they've done with Father Gabriel. Not to say that it's like a bad interpretation from the comics. I don't remember the interpretation from the comics. I'm just not buying Seth Gilliam's performance as Gabriel. I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think it's the writing. I think it was his performance, and it wasn't bad. It just felt kind of phoned in. Like he definitely read what's on the page, and that was it. He didn't really put a lot.
Well, I felt like he was trying to put a lot into it, and I just didn't buy any of it. Like I would not have trusted that explanation by him if I was one of those characters in the room. I would have just thought he was lying because it didn't come off as sincere, even though he was trying.
I hear what you're saying, and I heard it last week too. What you guys talking about? Because I had to listen in last week, and it's not just because I'm very happy to see Seth Gilliam, Warren Taylor Jr., and Chad Coleman all from The Wire being in the same episode together. It's just I do buy the performance. I'm into it. I'm not about to say it's like top performances of The Walking Dead, but I have no issue with what he's putting.
And I should say in general, I don't really have a problem with it, but it seems like that one that I probably for last week. I'm trying to think what was the scene. I guess it was maybe him on the rocks and like being confronted by Rick and the group at the beginning, where I was like, this just feels like a weird over the top cartoon and not a real character. But in the other scenes, like him with Michonne, or just talking with the group, or he's waiting in the room later on in this episode, and the hunters are outside. I buy all that. It was just some of the emotional stuff where I was like, not buying it at all.
I think what it is he seemed to really try to oversell the hinting of he's hiding something, and I think that's more what it was than anything else that bothered me about his performance. And again, like you said, Aaron, it wasn't bad. I mean, it definitely was not a bad performance. It just wasn't particularly great. My thing about this whole scene where he reveals what he did is the overreaction, or just the reactions really, of our group, Rick and everybody, because I mean, yes, he was a coward from the beginning, but think about some of the crap that our group has had to do and has been forced to do, or bad decisions that they have made. This guy's not any more guilty of doing something selfish or stupid in the zombie apocalypse than anybody else that was in that room. So while they should be like kind of like, oh, okay, but I just to treat him so poorly based on that decision. I mean, think about it. He's a preacher. He's a man of peace. What's he going to do?
I mean, they've lost two of their best people, Carol and Daryl, for no apparent reason. Sasha's the love of her current life, Bob, is suddenly gone as well, and Rick's already been nervous about Father Gabriel, which he's literally told him, I don't trust you.
And they know he's been hiding something.
And they know he's been hiding something. To have him react the way he does makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's not like the group's all having fun aside with feeding Judith and partying up in the church. They're still kind of on edge about things that have been going on in terms of like how do we deal with this person that we can't really trust with like weird stuff written outside of his walls and the way he's been acting and whatnot.
Maybe I just missed it, but I didn't really sense that big of a reaction in general from the group at all from the story. I almost expected one of them to go, that's it. Like maybe I just missed some cutaway shot to some character or something.
Well, I mean, Sasha did pull a knife on him. And
I thought Sasha put the knife back away. That was the shot I saw.
There was just a
level
level
of
of tension.
She put it away after Rick grabbed him and started pushing him around and getting him to confess. And then after he told his whole story, then she put it away.
I probably was just not paying that close enough attention to the scene because, like I said, I was not buying the performance. But yeah,
This is one of those I watch a few times before I write the review.
Fair enough.
Like, I get a good look at like who's doing what.
By the end of that scene, I was only half watching because I just did not care.
But Chubb, to back up a bit, I do agree with your point that they really were trying to sell the whole he's hiding something aspect, which I can understand that as a reason why you can't quite buy parts of his performance based on how much they're trying to sell that you can't trust this guy versus how, looking at it now, how insignificant his reveal really is. It's not like we know any of the people that he got killed or anything like that. It's more of a I locked the doors because I'm a coward. All right, it's not like I locked the doors and Beth died. Like that's not a thing.
Although I wonder if to me or to us it was oversold, or we saw it that way because we really know what this character is about from the comics. Whereas maybe your average viewer, they needed to kind of push that a little bit. I don't know. It's just, to me, that's what didn't sit well with me.
It's trying to find that balance. Yeah, I can see that. But like, I didn't remember. I had a feeling that it was something about him doing a cowardly act. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. But I feel like you guys last week you said that you couldn't exactly remember what Gabriel like.
I had no memory whatsoever.
Yeah,
I didn't either. I read the comics too, and it's kind of funny. We're talking about how he's not that memorable of a character in the TV series as well. We have issues with the performances or whatever. I just felt like when he kept saying that, about locking the doors, he was just kind of trying to rationalize it all to himself.
I can buy that
in front of other people, rather than freaking out or whatever. And I I didn't really have a problem with the performance. I thought it was fine.
I think it's also because I don't expect this character to live or be involved in the rest of the season after maybe next week or the week, probably the week after. I guess it's next week's the Daryl and Carol story or whatever. But I mean, I just I'm not expecting to latch on to this character. So I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll see him for a little bit, and then he'll leave or die or something.
So right after this conversation, what was it that happened? Did they hear a knock or a scream, or what was the actual impetus of them opening the
There was a
doors?
noise outside, and then they saw Bob lying out
Yeah,
there.
they find an unconscious Bob out there, and once they get him inside, he wakes up. He warns the group about Gareth. He told him what Gareth told him about Daryl and Carol. He shows everyone his bite eventually, and basically it's an info dump, but not in a bad way, of just giving everybody up to speed and all the information they're going to need for the rest of the episode of Gareth's out there, this is where they are, or at least this is my memory of it, there were zombies there, this is how many people he had on his team, etc. and so forth. It was a very important conversation, I don't mean to belittle it.
Could they kill a bunch of walkers too when Bob was out there? Like when they're walkers?
I think there was a couple of them, yeah.
Because it's like the only we get the walker stuff with Sasha, where they're apparently very sneaky somehow, and then we get this walker stuff, and that's the extent of zombie action we get in this episode.
Yeah, this was much more about the person-on-person violence.
Exactly, yeah. Which made it hard to be like, because I tried to do zombie kill a week every week, and there wasn't really much to go with this week. So.
I would say probably Bob, but I don't mean that as a joke, but,
I know.
spoilers for the end of the episode, hopefully you've
For the
already
person listening to this podcast, I didn't watch the whole episode, but it's still the podcast.
Seriously, what are you doing, Jerry?
I can't believe you called out Jerry.
He knows what he did. So Abraham begins to argue with Rick and says they need to leave for Washington as soon as possible. This is getting ridiculous. They've got people being eaten and they're being hunted. They need to just leave right now. But Rick obviously disagrees. Glenn gets in the middle and convinces Abraham to stay and says, if you help us kill the Termites, me and Maggie, and I believe Tara also says she'll go, but the three of them will go with Abraham to Washington, D.C., and it's a tense standoff. Alpha males going at it, but eventually they agree that is what happens. Abraham will give them 12 hours, and then he's leaving.
And
Just real quick, when because they're doing like they're all getting all alpha male on this. When Glenn stood up, I thought he was going to say something like, "You're making too much sense." Because
Abraham?
because everything Abraham was like, "Why you want to leave?" made complete sense to me. It's like, yeah, the guy that's going to save the world could get killed in this situation. We've lost people. There are people after us. We don't need to be here. That's not where we need to be right now. They know where we are.
While I agree with you 100% intellectually that Abraham was the one making the most sense, whether we buy Eugene's explanation or not, that makes 100% sense. However, I'm going to stick to my guns with what I said earlier in the season of, back when they left Terminus, they should have followed Rick then and gone back and killed everybody, because, like Rick even says pretty much exactly what I said in this episode, even if they don't come after us, they will keep doing this to other people, and that's horrible, and if we don't stop them, we're monsters, more or less. So...
Oh yeah, I see the logic in why to handle this. I think I was agreeing on Rick's logic back in that first episode as well. But it's like, for this kind of mission that Abraham's involved in, yeah, I mean, it would be easier for me to side with him in terms of if I was in this scenario, or if I was Eugene.
Since you brought up logic and lack thereof in some cases, this is the first point of the episode of the very illogical loop of nonsense that I just don't understand where they're coming from. And I'm going to get a little ahead in this, but this starts with them wanting to split up. Agreeing to split up at noon the next day after we just had 2 episodes where it was stated at least 2 or 3 times by everybody, we're all back together, we need to stick together, we don't need to allow this to happen again. Well, that's the first illogical point here. We're going to split up. The second thing is, okay, so I get, like you guys were saying, Abraham's point makes perfect sense. This guy has the secret to stop this hell we're living. We need to protect him and get him, and now there's this new imminent threat that that I cannot allow him to be exposed to any longer. I need to leave. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'll give it 12 hours. And then helps eliminate said danger. And then now he's still taking the group and splitting them up in order to protect Eugene from this imminent danger, this new danger that they have now done away with.
The immediacy, yeah, it's
the whole thing just it's not logical one bit. Not to mention, they don't know. They could have waited another day. They don't know where Daryl and Carol went. I mean, they've been told by Bob that the hunter said they took off in a car together. So obviously, for all they know, they went off to Lover's Lane for a little bump and grind. Who knows? They're
supplies.
Probably or supplies. Well, if it's Meg and Glenn, it's both. But either way, they're probably coming back. Can we just wait till the next morning or something? Can we at least wait 24 hours? Can we try to figure something out here? And then sure enough, the taillights are barely over the horizon, and here comes Daryl walking out of the woods. I'm like, come on. The whole them splitting up just makes no sense, and maybe it's going to make plot sense down the line of the season, but I wasn't happy with that whole situation. And while we're on the subject of the Rick-Abraham confrontation, I was really wanting to see one or the other or both punch each other, kind of the way it came to in the comics.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually.
I figure they're just going to whip it out and start measuring right there.
Rich, I'm not sure that I'm following what you're saying about the illogicalness of it. Yes, that's not a word, but everybody else seems to be. So maybe we just need to walk me through it. Abraham never wanted to stay at this church in the first place. He's been trying to get everybody to leave since the beginning. It seemed like he only reluctantly agreed to stay for a day or so. Now he's got a threat. He's like, okay, now this is the impetus I need to just get the hell out of Dodge. So he's trying to. The fact that he agrees to help and stay out of altruism or whatever is fine with me. But I don't understand why you're saying it's illogical for him to want to get to DC as soon as possible. Threat or no threat, that is his
No. That's not the illogical point. The logical point is they have all agreed that they need to stick together.
That was agreed to that. Abraham just wants to get.
They were all saying that as they were going down the railroad tracks at the end of the season opener.
But Abraham only agreed to that because he thought they were going to come with him to DC. As soon as they're going to show any skepticism about that, he's just going to leave them behind.
But they've stated they're going to go to DC with him. Nobody in the group said we're going to stay at this church for an extended period of time. They're just trying to regather themselves, kind of put together the plan for this trek halfway across the country on foot.
Well, first off, it's not halfway across, but Abraham doesn't care about Carol.
Okay,
and
a third way
about
across
the group.
I get that, but what I'm saying is, why go to all the trouble of immediately going? I mean, it was pretty much implied that they were going to stay at the church 1, maybe 2 days to rest up, gather themselves, and move on, and make a plan. But instead, this imminent threat comes up, this danger in the middle of the night, and Abraham wants to take off to protect Eugene. I get that, but now somehow Glenn gets them to agree on 12 hours. Now the threat's gone. Abraham helped eliminate that threat. They couldn't just stick around for another half a day or so, like was originally implied.
And hope Daryl and Carol show back up.
Well, even just to save her. I mean, it just seems like they're like 3 hours leaving.
If they're fixing to take a trip, a third of the way across the country, then
Atlanta's not that far from DC.
Regardless, I see where Rich's point is, which is why I have an issue with this.
I'm feeling dumb. I feel really dumb right now.
Maybe I'm not explaining this monosyllabically enough for Jordan. Why don't you go ahead and explain my point, Aaron?
I mean, we should move on, but I mean, it's just like the threat's there. I can see why Abraham stays and makes the deal or whatever. Once the threat's eliminated, it doesn't seem like he still needs to be so adamant about holding on to that deal. It's like, well, we said we were going to leave at this time, so we're still leaving at this time. It seems like, well, now we've got rid of this. The Bob thing just happened. We're all kind of grieving and resettling from this thing that happened. We could probably hold out for another day because it's not like there's anything that's pushing us to need to leave right now.
Well, except
and,
he's sick
and maybe
being
the two
pushed back,
very
back,
effective
back,
people in our
held
group.
back by Rick's group over and over again. He's just trying to DC. He probably would have been there by now if he hadn't kept stopping to help them.
He'd be there
Teamwork
right now.
has give and take in it there, Jordan.
He would have been there by now if Eugene didn't shoot up the truck that they
Well,
had.
that's true, but that's Eugene.
Let's move on. Let's get
My thing is I don't see it as illogic so much as just differing viewpoints between these two characters that are at least consistent. The two characters being Rick and Abraham here, both of them following the character logic that they would have, and them just being differing logics.
I agree with that. Like, that's not an issue. It's more of like I feel like the writers are forcing them to separate.
Yes.
Because they can do things with that I can only hope will help the show. But from my perspective, from where I'm sitting right now, it just makes me think, well, this just seems forced as opposed to like a natural splitting of the group.
I don't know that I buy that. I just feel like this is natural for Abraham, but agree to disagree, I guess.
Yeah, I see it more as a mechanical thing that's going to help them to write better scripts, more than an organic thing, growing out of the storytelling itself. Because I mean, it's a lot easier to write for a smaller group and give everyone time to shine and interact than it is for a big unwieldy group of 15 or whatever.
And if it leads to good scripts and leads to good episodes, great. I'm happy
Hey,
to do that for them.
If the show's good, that's all that matters. Right?
There you go.
Okay, so back onto the episode. Sasha is just like everybody else, but especially Sasha is ready to just break faces over at Terminus Camp. So Tyrese comes over to him and basically says, "You should stay here with Bob." When he wakes up, the faces what I want to see is you, and I know you're angry. Believe me, I've been there, and we as the audience have of course seen him be there before. You may want to just rip them all apart right now, but in the long run, you should be here with Bob. You will regret not being here with him when he wakes up if you go and murder them all. I did get it. Everybody has the right to be angry. I'm not saying we shouldn't murder them, but you yourself, Sasha, should stay here with him. She disagrees. She gives Tyrese her knife and tells him to stab Bob once he stops breathing. And it's an amicable disagreement, I would say. It's a brotherly, sisterly, friendly, loving disagreement, but they do not see eye to eye on the subject.
It's funny because I see like both their points and I agree with both their
Oh,
points.
absolutely.
Tyrese makes a good case. Although him bringing up Karen, it's like, I don't care about Karen. Tyrese, stop it. Like, I didn't know her. You barely knew her. But here we go again. Tyrese getting all crybaby eyes about this. But he makes a good point. Bob should be able to deal with this person that they obviously share a connection with. But yeah, Sasha, horrible thing happened to Bob, and she wants to get revenge. It's like I get where that's coming from. It's like hard to not argue with that point. But then, with all that said, Rick and crew did have a plan that never really separated them from Bob all that much. If it were
it was a little bit television there, only in that they purposefully obfuscated the plan from the viewer, and so by hiding the plan, it made the scene make more sense. But once we know the plan in the long run, I agree with you. It's a little bit like unless he wakes up during the 5 minutes they're gone, but still.
Or if Tyrese didn't know the plan, but that makes no sense to me. Well, he did not tell him what was going on in the scenario.
Well,
I don't know. He is
I
pretty
buy that.
wishy-washy, flippy-floppy, emotional guy.
Well, yeah, but if they didn't tell him the plan, then they could have reacted a different way to the Hunter showing up in the church as opposed to just sitting tight and waiting for Rick to do what he does.
That's true. So, shall we get into that? Because this is where I don't want to say confusing, but it gets at least slightly less than straightforward. So let's just lay this out here. Rick, who leaves? It's Rick, Sasha, Michonne,
Tara,
and Maggie and Glenn.
Yeah.
Is that six right there?
Yes.
Those, well, that group.
Rick, Michonne, Sasha, Glenn, Tara, and Maggie. That's 6 people.
Those six.
They're all going to head to elementary school.
They leave the church. We see them in this nice wide shot. I actually really like the way they shot this. They walk off into the woods, and the camera freezes for what felt like a minute was probably 20, 25 seconds. But just watching them walk into the woods, and there's nothing. Giving you the clue that either your cable signal is completely screwed up, or something's about to happen, and indeed it's the latter. We then see the 5 termites come in from not the opposite side exactly, but they come in from the right side of camera when Rick's group left through the back screen. They come in from the right side, and they go up to the church. They're being very stealthy about it, and they break their way inside, leading you to think that while Rick's group was trying to get the drop on them, they actually got the drop on Rick's group, which is not what happened. But again, spoilers. Sorry, Jerry, you've been warned. So they make their way inside the church, and they are looking for anyone in there. They're speaking very loud when they're in there because they're talking to the people that they know are still hiding in the church, which is everybody who's left, which is what we got here: Tyrese, Father Gabriel, Carl, Judith, Bob, what's left of him, and is that everybody?
Carl Papa.
I said Carl, Judith, Gabriel, Tyrese, Bob. Is that it?
Is there some woman I'm not thinking of? I don't think so. No.
I think that's everybody. I think we have
Where's
everybody.
Rosita?
Oh, Rosita. Yeah, which group is she with?
She's probably Babe.
Is that like
Eugene
Abraham
probably-
Abraham and Eugene?
Oh, yeah, Eugene probably stayed back.
There's two groups. Some of them are hiding in the church. Some of them aren't.
The ones that are good fighters that we know
The
are good
bullet
fighters. They
must
go.
be protected.
There's a lot of people at this point. So,
See, that's why they're splitting up the group.
right, yeah. Honestly, that's true, and that's a good point.
Okay, we have Group A and Group B. There we
Group
go.
Alpha and Group Beta.
So,
That's the way they all became the zombie bunch.
The zombie bunch.
So Gareth and group are taunting the people hiding in the church and saying basically, come out, we're going to find you, this is going to happen. If you come out now, maybe we won't eat the baby, which, how altruistic of you. But they narrow it down to basically two rooms off either side of the, not the stage is the wrong term, but the altar.
Altar.
Yeah.
Altar.
So they've left in the right room, they've got people at both sides who are about ready to break it down when they hear Judith crying from the room, which is stage right, it's to the left of the church.
And Garrett's response was so great here, where he talks about, I'm beginning to really like this kid. He shows admiration for the baby because it gave away the location. I don't know, I just got a good chuckle out of that.
I thought that was good as well. So they're just about to shoot the hinges off of the door and burst their way in when the two people on either side of the door are shot from the shadows. Gareth turns around and points with his middle and index finger. They get shot off, and then Rick and the group, I guess it was Group A, is that correct, Rich?
Yes.
Group A emerges from the shadows and tells them all to drop their weapons and kneel.
I wonder if Garrett likes finger foods.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Hey.
This scene was awesome. Like I had a good feeling that like they wouldn't. I thought I saw something differently in that whole wood scene where they kind of walking. I thought I saw them like kneel down or something, but that was my mind playing tricks on me. But I thought there was no way that like this was their exact plan. Like I thought there was something up. Anyway, they pulled off a season 3 prison tactic where they just like kind of faked them out. It's like yeah, we were here the whole time.
And the use of their newly acquired silencers to kind of give a little confusion when the first two got shot was a nice add. Nice.
Glenn fought off a mop to get the silence. So.
It was a very vicious mob. So they surround, first off, I guess Martin, our surprise survivor, he refuses to kneel, but then eventually does, which seemed a little bit weird, except for him to give the line, there's always a choice, or you always have a choice, or something similar to that. So I guess that was your one thematic reason for him to do that. But
I was waiting for him to get shot in the face.
I was waiting for something to happen, and then just, no, it's just, he was kind of obstinate. Okay, whatever. So they all kneel, and Rick is in front of in front of Gareth, and Rick is in 100% creepy mode, which I love when Rick gets in that mode, where he's just kind of pacing and hopping from one foot to the next and just glaring and looks like his eyes might pop out of his skull. And Gareth starts to beg for mercy, and then you see the camera pulls back a little bit, and you see the red-handled machete hanging from Rick's side, and Gareth sees it as well. And Gareth basically says, you could have shot us, but you didn't. Just let us go. We'll leave you alone. And Rick kind of looks at him flippantly and says, we just didn't want to waste. The bullets, and then they proceed to massacre all of the termites.
Well, yeah,
Well, wait a minute.
we
Well,
didn't want to waste the bullets a little earlier than that. His line before he massacred them was, "I did make a promise to you."
Yes.
Well, I mean, first, Gareth says, you don't know what it's like to be hungry, and he's being pretty creepy in his own way.
Richard said, we eat dog food. Yes, we do.
And Rick's response to that is, I already made you a promise. And then they showed the machete, and I really like that. That was awesome.
It's that, like, he has two lines in this episode within like 5 minutes of each other that easily enter the top 10 badass things Rick has ever said on The Walking Dead.
So they massacre them, like I said.
Horrifically. Like the great shot, like the camera upshot from Gareth to Rick is amazing because you're just seeing like just goo go onto Rick as he's hacking away with his machete, and you get like you get like the others looking at them in disgust. You have Tyrese especially looking at like his sister Sasha brutally stabbing Martin in the chest, and Abraham of course is going to town on one guy's face. Like there's just nonstop viciousness going on in the scene.
Okay, I gotta disagree. Okay, so, and I get exactly what you're saying, Aaron. Like I said in the beginning and previously, this is my favorite storyline from the comics, yada, 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 etc. If I remember from the comics correctly, this is a non-spoiler, really, because it's pretty much what you saw here, except just in a different place. My memory is that they don't show pretty much any of the murder. Is that correct? That basically you might see like a couple close-up, in the comic. You see a couple close-up of weapons and maybe some sound effects, and then pretty much it's over. Like something horrible happened, but you don't see it.
They do it too. Yeah, they show like the results more than they show the actual violence taking place, which is what they do in this. No, I guess less so in this episode.
Right. I think that works way better. Honestly, as they say, the imagination, is more brutal than the show can ever be, or the book or anything really. Your imagination will fill in those gaps. I kind of wish they left it to the imagination, because what they showed, while yes, brutal, I agree with you, was nowhere near as brutal as I wanted it to be or imagined it to be for the last few years, and so it did not live up to my expectations. I honestly wish that they had that first shot of Rick, bringing down machete and maybe one blood spray, and then either pan up to some of the ornamentation of the church or back out through the door like they did with Tyrese and Martin in the previous episode, and then just let you hear it and show you the leftovers later, basically, or the aftermath, I think was the word you used, which is a better word. It didn't live up to my expectations, and yes, that's a little bit unfair of me, but at the same time, even if I hadn't read that in the book, I still think this wouldn't have lived up to what I wanted them to do to the termites, and I wish they just left it to the imagination, honestly, because there's no way they could get brutal enough for me.
That's a subjective way to put it.
Absolutely,
I mean, that's your opinion, and I agree with what you're saying, but I tend to think that they kind of left a little bit the theater of the mind anyway. I mean, the way the lighting was in that scene, as far as, you couldn't really make out everything, and I think that they gave us just enough shots of a little bit of the gore, and we didn't see everything.
I feel like we pretty much did. It was like chop, 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 this guy's dead, chop, 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 this guy's dead, chop, 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 that guy's dead.
We weren't like we saw Abraham hitting a body in the face. We saw Sasha stabbing a guy, but I mean the Rick to Gareth stuff, which I think is kind of the most important in that equation because he's the only character you really know in this episode. You don't see him getting it. You see Rick going after him. You see the emotion in his face, which I think is most important about that.
Exactly, and what you're looking for, Jordan, I think was implied well. But
I agree with you that they did a good job with it, but I think it could have been done better for me. And again, you're absolutely right. It's 100% subjective.
And I think it's also put into the faces of the ones watching, which includes Team Alpha. Like you're watching Maggie's face, and you're watching Tara's face, and you're watching Tyrese, of course, who has the most. Because Tyrese is he's the housewife of the show now, so you're watching him have the most reaction. Like, oh my god, my lovely's like.
Oh, six alive. Yeah. Oh, my weak constitution. The point I was going to make is the focal point for that in that scene really for me was not the goo, but the actors, the faces, like Aaron had alluded to. So I mean, I don't know whether he was. I know Charlie Adler likes to use negative space a lot because he's in black and white, and he doesn't shy away from showing gore. But a lot of times with the ultraviolent stuff, he'll do what Jordan is saying and kind of like cut away or use a silhouette or something like that. But I was more interested in the performances than I was in the gory special effects, to be honest.
I definitely see where you're coming from as well, Jordan. But I do think it's being slightly informed by an understanding of what the show was going to do with these characters in advance based on your love for the comic book. That's putting something over your perception.
Well, no, what I'm saying is more of, even if I hadn't had that, I know what I wanted to see just based on how evil the termites were this whole time, and I feel like they both went too far and not far enough because they showed us some, and either I wanted to see all of it in all the gore detail, or I wanted to see pretty much none and just the aftermath. And the comic is what shows me what I preferred, but only because I had that. But I still would have been left wanting more even without the comic.
And I think that's just a weird kind of limbo. You have to
absolutely.
Of understanding like what you might think if you didn't know the scene.
And just to be clear to the listeners, you guys, I'm not saying this was bad. I'm just saying there's something I would have preferred. This is absolutely fine and serviceable.
This Rick has both his hands too, so it allowed him to do more violence.
Jeez, spoiler.
I think we've mentioned that one enough times in the past. That one's a fair game.
Sorry, Jerry.
And Kirkman has already said it'll never happen on the show, so we don't have to.
Too many limbs have been lost already. They don't want The Walking Dead to get repetitive with limb
What, I think this is a Star Wars movie? I mean, come on.
Later on, pretty much right after the massacre, when everyone kind of just taking pause to reflect on what they've done, we see the father of Gabriel is very disturbed by everything that's happened, and he says, this is the house of the Lord, this is God's house. I forget exactly what his line was, but Maggie responds with the episode title and says, no, it's just 4 walls and a roof.
And the floor.
Pop up out of the side and be like, that's the name of the episode.
A lot of times I have problems with and there's your episode title. This one I thought worked. It felt more like they chose the episode title from the line instead of the other way around.
Well, I think they missed an opportunity with this episode. They should have used what I'm going to name my future punk band, and that should be Tainted Meat. That's what I thought they should have named the episode.
Tainted Meat. Whoa.
No, when Rick has that line where he says it could have been us, Do you mean that they could have become cannibals, or they could have been us being slaughtered by them?
Probably the latter.
Yeah, I think the slaughter.
I don't feel like Rick was in a position thinking, man, if we did things differently, we could be eating Bob right now too. I don't think that's the thing.
The barbecue smells good. I don't know.
The following morning, everyone says their goodbyes to Bob, which I thought was very nice. And Bob thanks Rick for taking him into the prison and giving him a home, which was also very nice. Although I thought maybe that should have given more to Glenn than Rick, but whatever. And then he later dies in Slash's arms. And Tyrese comes in, kind of hugs his sister, takes the knife from her, or she gives him the knife, and he stabs Bob in the head, obscured by Bob's head, so we don't actually see, which again I thought was a nice touch. And then the group buries Bob beside the church.
So here's my issue with this scene. Not the scene, not like the performance of anything, or the goodbye or whatnot, but this kind of gets back to what Chubb was saying earlier about the whole logic thing. I feel like we spent a lot of time with Bob where I don't know if Bob really needed all of this attention that we got for him. And I feel like if they spent some of that time instead giving more sound logic to what Abraham's plan is and why they still need to proceed out, the episode could have been better overall. Like, I feel like we got a whole, like everybody say goodbye to Bob as if he was some, like, character that we've all come to love because he's been on for forever, but he's really only been on for, a season and a couple episodes, and even then we don't really know a lot. We don't care about Bob the same way we care about, like, Glenn or something like that. We got a giant send-off for him. I'm not saying the performances were bad by anybody. I think the scenes were, they're good, they're well written, they're well acted, but it seems like we just got a lot of time spent with this character.
I kind of agree with you, kind of disagree. One, I do really like Bob, probably to the same level.
I've come to like Bob as well.
But I think
Who doesn't like Bob?
I think it was more important for Sasha.
Less filling and tastes great.
I think it was more important for Sasha in particular to have those moments with Bob and show what he meant, because as we go on, I think this will probably influence her a lot, especially because I'm starting to get the impression that she is going to become the Andrea of the show going forward, and I mean that in comics Andrea, the Andrea we all really liked, and so I think to have those goodbyes for him and to show why he was important to the group, especially will go towards her as the show goes forward, and that's why it was important, and also I like Bob.
and there's but I think it also makes, by taking away Bob, it makes Sasha expendable at this point in the show. So I don't know how much I need to hear from Sasha.
I don't know. I mean, I think she's so
I don't know
important
about
to Tyrese.
Either Sasha or Tyrese has to go. That's kind of a prediction I have because we don't need both of those characters, and this is a show that does kill off characters.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with your point, Aaron, about so much Bob time with this, and I read that in your review on the is it Young Folks?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, throw you a little plug there.
TheYoungFolks.com.
But I think that it's more the juxtaposition of putting this beside the scene before of the come to Jesus meeting, pun intended, that they had with the hunters, to kind of soften. We just had this probably one of the most violent scenes that's been on the show so far, at least with our group, with live humans, not zombies, and then to show the humanity and actually the forgiveness and the how humble and welcoming this group is with the Bob scenes. I think that kind of helped balance that out, if I'm making sense there.
You're making complete sense, and I agree with you. And sure, I understand there's probably also people listening to this that are like, Aaron's so off base on this point, so I understand. But it is kind of this disadvantage or that I have of where I'm looking at the show like in retrospect and what I would do differently, even though I'm not in the position to make any of those choices. Again, I certainly like Bob as a character, and I really like the acting from the people involved in these scenes and whatnot. It's just like if the show was 10 minutes longer, maybe I'd appreciate being able to both comprehend the Abraham stuff that you and I have both agreed on is like kind of wonky, and the Bob stuff also taking place. But in terms of like giving us some semblance of life and something to celebrate after some horrific actions, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I agree there.
My only complaint about this scene is Tyrese couldn't have pulled the corpse off of the preacher's couch before he.
I was wondering that too.
I'm like, come on, man. It's not like they have Febreze in the zombie apocalypse.
That'd be a genius marketing idea, though. If you had like the last Febreze factory after the zombie apocalypse.
It makes sense, like the characters, like smell like Daryl.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping at this point where Tyrese chose to be the one to do that is him metaphorically finally popping some Midol, putting his Tampax in, putting his big girl panties on, and actually becoming a big part of the group instead of such a wuss anymore. I want the comic Tyrese.
I think we're past that. Like, or if we're not, we're gonna have to wait several seasons just like we had to wait to get the Rick that we wanted to the show if we want to get the Tyrese that we kind of want.
Yeah.
So Abraham gives Rick a map with the route they're going to take to Washington, and he, Eugene, Rosita, Glenn, Maggie, and Tara drive off on the repaired bus, and everyone kind of waves them goodbye. And then Rick looks at the map after Abraham drives away and looks at the message that Abraham had left for him that says, and I may be paraphrasing, but I believe it was, Rick, sorry I was such an asshole, you should still come to Washington, this world is going to need Rick Grimes, which is pretty awesome.
It is. It's why I don't think they're gonna have to fight ever. I think it's like we've kind of bro agreement right there.
Yeah.
That night, Gabriel and Michonne are sitting on the front stoop as Michonne keeps watching. By the way, we should mention that she got her katana back because it was in the back.
Yeah.
Table.
Reunited and it feels so.
One of my favorite '90s movies is how Michonne got her sword back.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Angela Bassett, right?
Yeah, you gotta be strong. You gotta talk like that.
So Gabriel and Michonne have a little bit of heart-to-heart, and then he eventually goes back inside, and Michonne hears a noise in the bushes, so she goes to investigate. And out from the bushes comes Daryl, being much louder than normal. And Michonne asks where Carol is, and Daryl looks back at the woods and says, "Come on out." And we cut to black, ending the episode.
Before we get to the Daryl stuff, I know we should talk about that. I want to get to Michonne a little bit because we obviously haven't had too much Michonne this season just because there's a lot of other things to focus on rather than just her. But she's had some good scenes, including the one in this episode. The way she's sitting on the porch before Gabriel comes out, she's kind of looking at her sword. I think it's a credit to like Denai Guerra's performance and like what we know about this character, where you can, because she talked about last week how she felt like she didn't, it became too much of a part of her, while she maybe forgot that she was like a person or forgot what she had been going through and whatnot. And it seems like she didn't really necessarily need to get the sword back. And I feel like I got all of that just from her sitting on the porch looking at a piece of wood.
And not only
getting
it back, because I completely agree with you, but after the speech she gave last week, getting it back after a moment of such sheer brutality was a double punch in the face or punch in the gut, whatever metaphor you want to go with. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's just a nice piece of acting in terms of kind of a physical performance, which involves very minor physical work, is more of a it's like facial performance, I guess. And then obviously having a conversation with Gabriel and not necessarily going into the stuff that I just detailed, but you can kind of hear it in what she's saying, in what she's talking about of understanding regret, remorse, and whatnot. And she's this character that's become this iconic figure for being the girl with the sword that's really good with it, and now she's had time to spend without that sword. Not even that long, grant you too, but she's already realized like I don't know if I really need this, but we'll see where that goes, I guess, if anything comes to that.
It's been really cool to see her performance like mature as the seasons have gone on too. I mean, from her original early portrayal of Michonne is kind of just like Grumpy Cat, like all the way to this like definitely more textured, more multi-layered performance that she's worked into.
Because you see the writers figure out what to do with these people. It helps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the Daryl and the wood scene, that was the end of our episode. I'm of two minds about this. A, I love that as a way to end an episode. I thought that was really cool, especially with the stuff we've seen for next week, and we can get into that after the end of the episode, so it's not spoiling anybody. I don't know that I loved it appended to this episode, if that makes any sense. Like, I felt like this episode should have ended somewhere sooner, and it felt the pacing of the episode was strange because of that. Like, you had the massacre come in 40 minutes into the hour, and then you had 10 minutes of decompression, and then this. Like, that was just kind of a weird pacing and flow to the episode for me. Again, I loved it, the ending as an end to an episode, just maybe not this one.
I mean, I feel like the episode does a good job of being fairly self-contained while still having that kind of like, and here's next week, like like a small preview within the like giving you a sense of where it's going. I mean, I prefer this over like, and then Abraham drove off into the sunset. Like that's boring to me. Or then like we focus on Bob's grave with Tasha crying or something. Like knowing that there was a lingering question in my mind of like, what about Daryl and Carol? I like that there's a small setup taking place to give you the sense that, oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna get back to this now. Like we've gotten off our terminus detour, whatever you want to call it, and we can focus on this other thing that's also a development in the show.
Now,
It's not really a cliffhanger, more of like a plot hook, to
Yeah,
get you
that's,
interested. Think
Right.
about it.
now, should we save our speculation for who is in the bushes for when we talk about next week's episode? So we decided off mic to save that conversation for later, because otherwise we're going to end up spoiling somebody for next week's episode based on the previews at least. So if you want to hear a discussion of that, just wait till the end of the episode. So before we get into our Buster ratings for the episode, Rich, why don't you tell us about our wonderful sponsor?
Well, there's a secret that I've been hiding from you dudes, and that is that I have a serious addiction, and it's financially crippling me. And that
Is it Sailor Moon cosplay? Because I really don't like that mental picture.
that's a minor issue, but that aside, I'm heavily addicted to comic books. I don't know about you
Oh,
guys, but the rising prices of comic books have pretty much put me into the poorhouse, because much like oxygen, I must have comics to read in order to stay alive. But there has been a solution to it, my own personal rehab that I'll share with the public, and that is dcbservice.com, discount comic book service, where you can go sign up and get your comic books at 30, 40, and in some cases 50% off, depending on what specials they have. They'll have bundles of what's coming out for the month for DC or Image or Marvel. Most importantly, for our Walking Dead fans, you can get a lot of the trades at 40% off. The 100 Project limited edition hardcover that Robert Kirkman put together, normally priced at $24.99, you can get it $14.99. The regular trade paperbacks, like Jordan was talking about earlier, generally those are $12 to $15. You can get those at around $7 to $8 a piece. The hard bound editions that Aaron was talking about, I mean, those go for, I think it's, what are they, $35, $40, and you can get them for like $23 on discount comic book service. Toys, statues, all kinds of things. The Walking Dead TV Daryl and the Wolf statue, for those looking to get Chub Toad something for Christmas, this is on my list regularly. It's a $239 statue. You can get it for $191.20. That's 20% off, folks. And just tweet me at ChubToad01 and I'll give you my address to send that to. But go check them out. They are a proud sponsor of the Walking Dead TV podcast. All it can do is save you tons of money, because I know everybody out there listening to us either reads Walking Dead or wants to read Walking Dead, or as a requirement should be reading Walking Dead. So go there, save money, do it now.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, Buster ratings time on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. How many Busters would you give this episode? Aaron, why don't you go first?
I'd probably go 4.5. I didn't go. I wasn't here last week. I was like 4.5 on that one too. But 4.5 this week, I think, is because of the. I think that despite my misgivings that are fairly minor, just more stuff to bring up, but the whole handling of the Hunter storyline, especially given how quick it was, I appreciate that a lot. I really like Gareth's performance. I really like just the way all that played out enough to think this is just a really strong episode of Walking Dead. So 4.5.
I also give this a 4.5. I really enjoyed it, just as much as I enjoyed the last episode. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts swinging around, and I don't know, just really some really good acting, some really good scenes that stuck with me in this episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. And Michonne got her katana back, so that was always great. So 4.5 out of 5 for me.
I have to agree and concur with the 4.5, not just because all the cool kids are doing it, but because I think this episode earned a solid 4.5. And to Aaron's point, if the logic train that kind of derailed hadn't happened, it would have been probably a full 5, because I think the wrapping up and the way that the Hunter story was handled was awesome.
Well, let's make it 4.5s all around, because I will agree. Again, I wish it was higher, because I really had high expectations for this episode, which probably hurt it a little bit, but hey, what can I do? I really did enjoy the episode. Again, little things like how they handled the massacre, or Father Gilliam's performance, or Seth Gilliam's performance as Father Gabriel. What can you do? It was a very solid episode. I was very happy with it, and it leaves me very excited for next week. So 4.5s all around. Richard, what did America think? What were the Nielsen ratings for this week's episode?
Well, it got a solid 7, which is a little down from the 7.7 it had last week. There were just shy of 14 million viewers watching it live. It had that 7 was within the 18 to 49 demographic that they're looking for. So while it was a little less than last week, it was competing against the World Series, which evidently means something to some folks this year. And,
Heard of it.
But of course, we don't have the plus ratings on here yet, so it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah, all the ratings for pretty much every show, but particularly nerd stuff like The Walking Dead, tends to go up quite substantially with the +3s and +7s, which for anybody who doesn't know is the ratings that they give out. They're kind of updated with the numbers of who's watched what on DVRs and such like that, and Hulu and things like that in the 3 days for the +3s or the 7 days for the +7s since the episode aired. So it always goes up pretty substantially then as well. But still, very solid ratings. Jim, what did our listeners think on Facebook? Of course, if you are a fan of the show and have not checked out our Facebook group, go to facebook.com right now, check out the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group, and you can join in on the discussion and see all the news right there first with all the other fine listeners we have.
Absolutely, and we got a lot of really good comments this week. Roger Austin gave it 4 tainted barbecues out of 5. Another good episode. Very brutal end for the termites, but I'd have done the same in Rick's position. Everard Santa Marina, thank you for setting up our ratings thread for us this week. Everard, I appreciate that. 4 red-handled machete swings out of 5. Happy to see they're moving quickly this season. I thought there might be a couple of more episodes of the Hunter Cat and Mouse. Do we know what made them come back after they left the elementary school? A couple of tropes, Rick firing into the woods in frustration with no regard for attracting walkers, and the baby giving away the room where the group was hiding. These cheapen the episode somewhat, but I'll forgive them. Who the heck was behind Daryl at the end of the episode? We may be on the scariest episodes yet. Susan Monk, 3.75 machete massacres in the apps. Crossword fan, obviously, because that word is in almost every crossword I've ever done. That was the creepiest aspect of the show. Gareth's speeches were TMI. He and the other termites deserved what they got. Mike Jones, 4.75 church buses. Brutal episode with great pacing and dialogue. My only gripes were no payoff in the tainted meat. Why Rick would so easily agree for Glenn and Maggie to leave for DC, and Tyrese is still a housewife church lady. Jason Watson, 5 out of 5 plates of chopped Gareth sushi. This was a great episode. It's close to a direct adaptation of the Hunter storyline from the comics as we could get. Insert Bob for Dale. Leo Cavallo is 4.5 out of 5 Gareth's blown off fingers. Very tense episode, maybe even better than the season premiere. Max Sofer, 4 out of 5 red-handled machetes. So glad we didn't draw Gareth out all season. Not every bad has to last 8+ episodes. I'm also pleased that they kept Gabriel's secret pretty much the same. I didn't think it would play well after all the awful things we've seen the others do, but Seth Gilliam acted in the way that made it feel worse than a lot of the other stuff. Bravo. Let's see, Monica Smith and Cito, 4 out of 5 terminated termites. Gripping episode with Rick is scariest. Mary Turpecki, I'm going with 4.5. Bye Bye Bobs. This episode had it all for me. Nods to the comic, tension, emotion. While I'm glad the pace of the show is moving swiftly, I have to admit I'm sort of sad to see Gareth go. He was one creepy guy. I agree with you there. Craig D. Monda, 4.75 silencers out of 5. Poor direction, super dark lighting by Jeffrey F. January. We don't actually get to see Gareth getting hacked up to blood spattering. Jim D mentioned this on last week's podcast. The Michonne sword retrieval scene could have been done in a much more artistic and clever way, not just her picking up. Acting superb, writing top-notch, director fail. 4 out of 5 creepy Midnight Crossroads for Belinda Clark Cake. 4 out of 5 laughing Bobs from Ian Timms. Was shame we didn't get the tainted knee payoff. I cheered for Michonne's sword reappearing and laughed my ass off with Bob.
The Laughing Bob is one of my favorite barbershop quartets.
Yeah. The Laughing Bombs, yeah. They open up for the B Sharps, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Robert Nigro, 4.5 Scooby-Doo villain speeches. Nice. Gareth's motor mouth was getting really irritating, even if he would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids. I thought the Father Gabriel needed a few punches in the face, and then Tyrese needs to take a Toastmaster class or something to boost his confidence. Nice. Richard Chopper Cherry Charrington once again with us in another top-notch episode, and I'll give it 4 slashes with machete out of 5. We were right on the theory that Bob was bitten, and I was very surprised that the termites were all killed off so easily. I for sure thought the storyline would be ongoing for a few more episodes at least. Brent Jones, 4 out of 5. Sorry for being an assholes. I really can't stand how last year we spent 6 episodes watching Maggie risk it all to find Glenn, but now no mention of her sister, and she's willing to leave for DC without even asking about her.
Yeah,
WTF.
I forgot to mention that too. That is something that's getting irritating.
That's a good point, Brent. Check out the big brain on Brent. And Sarah Ann Howard, really great episode, 4 out of 5 busters. Pacing is outstanding this season so far. Some fantastic performances as well. This episode was very creepy, and I love the dark tone matches well with the sometimes dark illustrations. In the comic, I fear too that Carol was gone. Carol's reaction to the question said so much. That makes me very sad. She's become one of my favorites. And if you would like to make a comment and join in the fun here on the Walking Dead TV podcast, not only is there a lot of good conversation and a lot of comments made about the different episodes, you can also get links to Aaron's reviews of each show at theyoungfolks.com from our Facebook group and a lot of news articles, fun stuff. I think I put the Carl Papa rap video up here, which is pretty nice. But check that out, the Walking Dead TV podcast Facebook group.
I appreciate the plug, Jim. I do write the write-ups as quickly as I can. I try to get them up pretty much the early morning/night of the episode, so it's fun to do.
You're a machine, Aaron.
I try.
And before we wrap up the episode, we have one other pretty fun thing, and that is we have that news we promised about the spin-off of The Walking Dead. I'm going to send over to Aaron for that, but now we know what? We know the director, we know some vague character details. What do we have, Aaron?
That's pretty much it, yeah. We talked about the characters before.
No, we decided to say that because there was so little there, and now that we have the director, well, we figured we had enough.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, people aren't about to blow their tops when they hear the name Adam Davidson because you're going to be like, who? And I'm going to say, well, he's won an Academy Award back in 1991 for a short film, but he's also done a lot of TV since then. Community, Fringe, True Blood, Rome, Dexter, Deadwood, Lost, as well as AMC shows like Low Winter Sun, the one that everyone loves, of course, and featuring Morgan, and Hell on Wheels and Turn. But yeah, they hired a director for the spin-off. I'm not sure if it's going straight to series. I imagine probably it's just because it says Walking Dead in the title somewhere. So like, yeah, this will go, whatever. People will watch it. But yeah, we do have some character stuff as well. We have the Cabrera family, which consists of a father and his angry adolescent son. The Tompkins family consisting of a mom, her screwed up teenage son, and her level-headed teenage daughter. See, this is how vague the details are. And we get a character named Andrea, a somewhat wilted flower child. Those are vague details, and I'm questioning why we have a character named Andrea and whether or not she's connected in some way to the Andrea that we know and hated on this show. That's a slight joke, but whatever. But the details are pretty thin. But it is a show that will apparently exist on its own. It won't be set in Georgia. It won't be based on any Kirkman comic characters. And it's maybe set in the earlier days. So like we're getting some information. We have this one of the writers is Dave Erickson, who's been on Sons of Anarchy. And so yeah, it's some minor details, but given that it's been a very dormant volcano since it was announced 3 years ago, maybe we're at least getting something to work with now.
Have they given any hints at what the spin-off show's name or title will be? It's not going to be like a Joni Loves Chachi type thing or anything. It's going to be The Walking Dead and then a subtitle or something. Have they said anything?
I think in the spirit of Aftermath, it's going to be Before Dead. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Or a variation on Rhoda or something.
Rhoda. Undead Rhoda.
But yeah, no real idea on what this thing's going to be.
I mean, the word I'm hearing is it's going to be set in DC at the early days of the outbreak, so it's possible just The Walking Dead DC. I think that's where District of the Dead maybe could be interesting.
Was it DC? I thought it was Washington State, not DC.
No, are you joking or?
No, I thought it was Washington State is what they were talking about.
Well, I was pretty sure it was DC at the early stages of the
it could be. I'm just my brain's
Washington State. That'd be hilariously boring.
It's going to be a 30-minute sitcom about a bunch of stoners who just sit there and rain and kind of like freak out about the zombies.
Well, this wilted flower child sounds like somebody that would have come up from Portland,
Or who would be in Congress now?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah, scant details, but we got something. Oh, and we have the showrunner is Erickson, actually, the writer from Sons of Anarchy, who's doing the writing on the show. He's going to be the showrunner here, and there'll be Galen Hurd and Kirkman. They'll be executive producers.
Not the Nick Carroll?
Not Nick Terrell, no.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
no.
I guess he
Oh,
does have
think
a lot of,
he's pretty
I'm
busy.
sure
with
he's
what
going to
he
do
does,
work on it. But
Right.
the only thing is early on when they were talking about this, they said that the two shows would not. There wouldn't be a crossover. Am I wrong in that? That there's not going to be
You're
a
correct,
crossover?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, they've said they're not going to connect to any of the comic characters.
I'm just saying,
It will exist on its own. It will exist on its own. It won't be in Georgia. So yeah, you won't be
because I'm just saying,
necessarily.
if you place them in DC, now we're looking at the possibility of them running into each other.
But also 2 years later, which would be interesting. Or 2.5, 3 years later.
Maybe it's secretly the Eugene show. Maybe everyone just really likes Eugene over at AMC, and they're like, let's give this guy his own series.
Yeah,
The early
Crazy
days.
Eugene.
So, do we have anything else before we close out, gentlemen?
I think we've gone on long enough.
I agree. I've got to edit all this. Jeez.
Our apologies to Jerry.
And of course, after we close it out, we will talk about the preview of next week's episode and speculate some on who was behind Daryl. But before that, if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can do so at 972-798-3830, 972-798-3830, or send us an email, comments at walkingdeadtv.com. Check out hhwlod.com for all of our great shows like Half Hour Wasted, The Long Box of Doom, Black Box, out now, and tons of other shows, Ichabod Cranecast, the DC TV podcast, It's All Connected in Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, and many, many more that I'm sure you'd enjoy. And you can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network. Aaron is at Aaron's PS4, Rich is at ChubToad01, that's 01, Jim is at Yoda Jones, and I'm at Jordan FRM Jersey. And so until there's no more room left in Hell and the Dead Walk the Earth, remember, I already made you a promise. Have a good week, everybody. And next week on The Walking Dead, episode 504 is entitled Slabtown. And the synopsis we have from TV.com is a group of other survivors are encountered. And from the preview, I really like the preview, by the way. I'm assuming everybody watched it. Who's here with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the symmetry of, her waking up in the hospital bed, Mira's Rick waking up in the hospital bed, looking out, seeing Atlanta. I believe that was Atlanta anyway. I don't know Atlanta skyline off the top of my head. But bring it back to that locale. I really like the way they set that up. That is really cool. I hope we get some of that in the episode, and it's not just those two shots, but there's actually some thematic symmetry there. Would be very, very neat. But let's get into now the actual speculation. Who is behind Daryl? Who's going to come out of the woods there?
Okay.
Found Waldo.
Oh!
Charles Nelson Riley.
Okay, so bear with me a minute, but I think I have this figured out. Okay, so we see, like you said, we see Beth in the hospital room, and what looks like Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay, now, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical here, but it is kind of a stereotypical thing that those of Hispanic persuasion will do things like put crosses in their car windows and things like that. I have a feeling that we are going to see the return of one or more of the Vatos from season 1.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I'm thinking that it's quite a possibility that they have evolved their nursing home into what's now they found sanctuary in the hospital. They've set up ways to help people, and they're taking those cars and going out on runs to find people, bring them back, and help them. I could be wrong on that, but I have a feeling that it's the Vatos involved.
I at least like it from its imaginativity.
I can like it for that reason too. But I mean, if we want to jump back to the Vatos, I remember that season 2 originally began with involving the Vatos, only to find that they've all been killed.
But that was a
before
deleted
the opening was
scene.
open. But I believe that was canon to the series.
Deleted scenes. I mean, it depends on the show. I know The Office deleted scenes were canon unless they weren't. But even if it was considered canon at the time as a deleted scene, they can always change their mind. It didn't air on the show.
I feel like there'd be Walking Dead purists that'd be like just outraged about it.
There will be Walking Dead purists outraged about everything. It doesn't matter what it is. My theory, I have two theories for who's going to walk out behind Daryl. One is it will be a group of people that he's bringing back from wherever Beth was, including Beth and Carol, assuming they're still alive at the end of the episode, and that it's an entire group that he's bringing out, which is why they were hanging back. He didn't want to freak out Rick's group, and it was more of, I'll go forward, warn them that you're coming, and then I'll bring you out. My other theory is that it will be Carol and Beth, but it will be Carol carrying a dead Beth over her shoulder, and that by the end of the episode, Beth will be dead. Those are my two theories.
Given how insignificant they made Beth since the big episode involving Beth and Daryl, it wouldn't be surprising, I guess, if that she ended up dying in the end of whatever next week's episode is or whatever happens. But yeah, I don't, especially because they've given Maggie nothing to really care about as far as Beth goes. So I don't know. I have no idea. I figured it'll just be like some Beth like lost an arm or something like that. I don't know, but it's a
Because I mean, you got to figure there's got to be some reason why whoever it was would be behind and holding back. And
why they didn't just walk out like, hey guys, guess what?
Yeah. Exactly. Jim, you have any ideas?
I would say the remnants of Woodbury if they hadn't all been gunned down.
That's true.
No, not
It was
really.
Jim. They brought
That's
back
me.
Jim.
That's me.
No, Jim from the first season.
Oh, okay. I thought it was me.
Which, by the way, how nice was it that they gave him a shout out this week's episode?
Right? Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, because people keep asking that question, how long does it take to turn? And even though they've made the point like 4 times now that it varies from person to person substantially, it's still nice for them to bring back specific examples. Jim, it took this long. This other guy didn't take that long. Whatever.
Shane, it took like 8 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it could be
Depends on how old
Daryl's,
you are.
it could be Daryl's other brother, Daryl.
Or the entire Harlem Globetrotters. We'll have to find out next
I
week.
guess I'm the only Newhart fan here.
I know Daryl, my other brother Daryl, I guess. 220, 221, whatever it takes. I get it. That's a different reference, I think. But
Maybe it's Morgan.
except that they said that Morgan was a month behind them, and it's been like 3 days, so I doubt it.
And that's kind of the obvious, what everybody is saying. I don't think they'd be so obvious. It'd be cool if it was, though.
Also, Morgan would have no reason to hang back.
True. Yeah.
Well,
that's
I
what think,
I don't think it's necessarily the hanging back thing. I mean, look at Daryl when he's with our group and they're out in the wild, and he tends to go forward. He tends to be the scout. I think he's just playing his usual role here of scouting. Are our group still safe at this church? Let me check it out first.
I mean, I get what you're saying logically, but in terms of remembering this is a TV show, I don't think that works for a reason.
It's not a TV show. In some existence, it is a reality show. Get with it.
Well, on that metaphysical note, I think it's time for the episode. And so, have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
And once again, sorry, Gary.
Recording now. It's recording. Yep, here it goes now.
And this is episode 123. 123.
Boom, chocolate latkes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Bob's Burgers.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There is a what is her name? Janelle Monáe song that incorporates a sample from that, which is really
Yeah, it's not on Sesame Street.
the song or her
Her
version
version
of
of
the
the
song.
song. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay, I
5.
was like, I know the version. I know the original
No,
song
no,
is-
her
is-
version.
is from
I wouldn't
Electric
mention. I mean, I thought everybody knew that was from Sesame Street, so I wouldn't mention that, but her version.
Right. I thought it was originally from Electric Company or 31 Contact or something, and then they eventually brought the segments over.
No,
to
because there's also
Hashtag important conversation.
People want to know. I once went to my first wiki wormhole ever was in the Sesame Street page. The things you know, like Oscar the Grouch was originally orange. Fun fact.
Things are going into Jordan's wormholes. I don't know what to talk about anymore.
Jordan's talking about his wormhole. Nobody wants to hear about that.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry.
No problem. It's always last week was the first episode in a long time of a regular episode. No bloopers. We just had, had nothing.
I wasn't there to put you guys down.
Well, we can't have that this week. We need to definitely come up with some flavors.
Well, we've already got some good stuff.
Yeah.
Wormholes and Sesame Street and that. Why don't you take a dial and go see a Star Wars? You like my Lucille Bluth there?
Yes, I do. Quite a bit.
Who apparently has a Persian accent for some reason? I'm not sure.
Star Wars.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my place back in the thing.
I don't know what the hell we're talking about anymore.
And then
And the map says.
hold on,
sorry,
I was going to go. I was going to say. I was going to
Edit it. All right, edit it out.
That's